The NBA Finals are underway, and what a statement the New York Knicks made. It's Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Let's get right to it. The Knicks were down 13 in the third quarter. Did not matter. Through the course of the fourth, all of a sudden, they were down 14. Jalen Brunson comes in and just goes off in the fourth. And stop me if you've heard this before. A double-digit win for the Knicks on the road in game one. Their win streak continues. Caroline, it was impressive.
There is no task too tough, no mountain too high, no deficit too large for the New York Knicks. This is what they keep telling us. This is what they keep showing us over and over and over again, game in and series out, is that it doesn't matter what kind of mountain this Knicks team is facing. They can find a way to get through it. And so much of that is because of that man right there, Jalen Brunson. That Jalen Brunson just comes alive in the fourth quarter. Like, I don't know what kind of performance-enhancing drug is in the fourth quarter for Jalen Brunson, but he looks at it as like, okay, it's time. It's time for me to put my Superman cape on and carry this team. You mentioned it, a 14-point deficit in the third quarter. And at that point, I'm like, all right, the Spurs are winning this one. Let's look ahead. Like, what do the Knicks need to fix for game two? What did the Spurs do right in game one? And look, the Spurs did some right. There was also a lot of bad on the side of the San Antonio Spurs and for the Knicks as well. I mean, they would be probably the first ones to tell you that. Jalen Brunson even said, look, it was not my best game. It was not our best game in his post-game press conference or post-game interview with Lisa Salters. But a 14-point deficit in the third quarter. I thought this game is done. Like, you don't come back from that. Not on the road, not in the NBA Finals, not when you're playing Victor Wembanyama. But all of a sudden, Cat comes through, and he was massive in this game. He was a big spark plug for why the Knicks were able to mount this comeback. And then Jalen Brunson puts up 13 of his 30 points, 13 of his 30 points in the fourth quarter. I don't want to hear he was only 12 of 31 from the field argument. I don't care. Because in the NBA Finals, you don't get style points. Like, you don't get a little extra razzle-dazzle for making it look nice. All that matters is that you figure out a way to get the job done. Jalen Brunson and the New York Knicks found a way to get the job done. And Fitzy, that's just what they do. They are so gritty and they are so resilient. And they kind of take on this identity of the Captain Clutch, Jalen Brunson.
There's such a, we wondered coming into this series whether there'd be experience or inexperience, what would matter. And in this game, it just felt like nothing rattled the Knicks. And as the game went on in the fourth quarter particularly, I thought the Spurs had a hard time getting any continuity with offense. Their offense looked haphazard. There was no rhythm to it. There was no defining, this is what we do and this is how we do it. Some of the threes that were heaved up looked awful by the Spurs throughout the course of it. Victor Wembanyama, uncharacteristic with turnovers, especially a late one that really put the nail in the coffin for the Spurs. So I across the board, I feel like these teams, as they were feeling each other out, confidence grew for the Knicks. And maybe that's part of what comes from the win streak that they're on. Maybe that comes from the magic they have. But Brunson in the fourth quarter, if you keep a game close, I don't care if he's 0-30 going into the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter, I don't want to take on Jalen Brunson. It's that simple. And right now, I'm not sure I want to take on Karl-Anthony Towns. Let's just acknowledge the entire basketball community owes Karl-Anthony Towns a massive apology. A few months ago, it was get Karl-Anthony Towns out of here. We were talking more about the quotes that he had about not being happy or not knowing what his role was on this team, all of these things. Last night, the Knicks just decided, you know what? It's not OG Anunoby, which is what we all expected. It's Karl-Anthony Towns, man-on-man, one-on-one. We're going to put him in front of it, and then we're going to send help to try and swat the ball away. And it worked. It worked throughout the entirety of this game. Karl-Anthony Towns was a defensive monster. I know Wemby put up the points, but Wemby's always going to put up the points. It's not about that. What it was about was, were they able to get the stops when they needed them most? That's the modern NBA, and the answer to that was yes. Were they able to get the turnovers when they needed them most? The modern NBA, the answer to that was Yes, Wemby seemed to struggle to get rhythm trying to get around Karl Anthony Towns, and Karl Anthony Towns stood there and just stood up. And for all the conversation that has been had for months about, oh my God, Giannis, the Knicks need Giannis. What are we going to do to get Giannis there? Karl Anthony Towns reminded us that when you got a guy that plays the way he played last night, you don't need Giannis. Karl Anthony Towns was a cheat code for the Knicks last night. And if he plays that way against Wemby the rest of this season, I'm going to look stupid by picking the Spurs in this series. There's no doubt about it. If Karl Anthony Towns is that effective night in and night out for the whole series against Victor Wembanyama, then I'm going to owe Karl Anthony Towns an even bigger apology. I will have to eat plenty of crow in the Knicks, but I think realistically, we're all going to have to rethink this. Karl Anthony Towns last night was everything we thought Chet Holmgren would be in the last series and more, and that was a defining factor for the Knicks.
I think it's fair to say Cat was able to limit Wemby better than any player this postseason has. I think it's fair to say that Cat has unlocked something that no other player in the league has been able to do, at least not yet. Because Cat was disrupting Wemby all day long. And one thing about Wemby is he's going to get his 26 points last night, but it came 6 of 21 from the field. Wemby drastically struggled from beyond the arc. The entire Spurs team struggled from beyond the arc. The entire Spurs team struggled shooting. And look, I think there could be maybe a combination of the reasons for that. One, the New York Knicks get a majority of the credit for that and what they were able to do defensively, how stifling they were to that team, how stifling Cat was to Wemby. I think part of that could have been, your tail kind of gets tucked between your legs a little bit in this moment. Part of that can be fatigue. We talked about that, rest versus rust, and how that was a massive, talking point going into game one. But it did kind of feel like at times last night when the Knicks were starting to find some momentum, that the 7-game series that the Spurs just wrapped up started to rear its ugly head a little bit. So I think there's several different, things that we can point to as to that being the reason why. But the biggest reason why the Spurs struggled so much shooting last night is because of what the Knicks were able to do on defense. I think the most impressive thing to me about this Knicks team and what we saw last night, and one thing I want to just point out for the record, this is game one. I expect this to be a very long series. Now, I did pick the Knicks. Thank you very much. And I feel very good about that pick coming off of game one. Once you steal one on the road, then all bets are off, right? We're looking at the series completely differently. But I think the most impressive thing that we saw from the Knicks last night is one of the most impressive things that we've seen really from the Spurs, and what I think is one of the calling cards of the Spurs. And that is, on any given night, anyone can step up. For the Spurs, it's Julian Champagnie. It's Dylan Harper, who was shot out of a cannon last night. He was like double-digit points in the first 6 minutes of that game last night. He does not look like a 20-year-old playing in the NBA Finals in his rookie season. So credit to him for stepping up. Normally, it's De'Aaron Fox that can step up and can create some offense when Wemby is getting double and triple teamed. De'Aaron Fox was bad last night, like straight up bad. When you're the vet in the room, you cannot have an off game like that in the NBA Finals and expect to win a championship. So, what we've seen traditionally from this Spurs team, or what we've seen from the Spurs, and what was a key point in them beating Oklahoma City was the depth and how many guys they can rely on to get scoring. Well, that's what the Knicks did last night. You need Josh Hart to step up? Got you. You need Jose Alvarado to step up and make some clutch shots? Got you. It's like everybody understood their role. And it was selfless basketball last night from the Knicks. Now, is that to say that we're going to see that every single night? I don't know, maybe. Is that to say that the Spurs won't make adjustments? Of course not. The Spurs were masterful at making adjustments in that series against OKC. But what I do know about this Knicks team, what we've seen all postseason long and what we saw on full display last night, is that it's really any man can step up. Anyone can step up and make clutch shots. Anyone can step up and create offense. Anyone can step up and make things difficult for the San Antonio Spurs.
When you have 28 points coming off your bench, when Josh Hart is getting rebounds the way he got them last night, just being disruptive over and over and over again, that's all part of it. I do think the Spurs shot so poorly down the stretch. And you mentioned Champagnie. I keep thinking about some of the bad misses from three, just bad misses from three. The sort of miss that if you were playing pickup ball in a gym, you wouldn't get the ball again for 30 minutes because you had the audacity to shoot that shot that way. Those were the sorts of misses he had. I keep thinking about that. I don't think that's who the Spurs are. Now, in fairness, I picked the Spurs in this series. I picked the Spurs in 6, and I think we said coming into this, there was a shot that in my mind the Knicks could win the first game, would make a lot of sense, and the Knicks are going to win one in the Garden. This all makes a lot of sense. I'm not panicked about my pick one way. I don't have a rooting interest one way or the other in this series, but I do think that it's going to be really easy over the course of the next 24 hours for everybody to decide that the Spurs are left for dead because of the energy we saw. I'm not willing to do that. But I do think momentum is a beast. And I do think this winning streak and something is maybe something I didn't factor enough into, because when you are the Spurs and you are taking on a team that hasn't lost in what feels like a year at this point with the Knicks, you have to contend with the fact that they understand, hey, if the game's going to be close, we'll find a way to win, because that's all they know right now. Momentum is so real at this point. 12 straight postseason wins. They haven't lost since April 23rd. And if you look at the margin of victory, no team in NBA playoff history has had a better margin of victory over 12 wins ever. This is the most dominant performance through a win streak we have ever seen. The Knicks aren't playing the best Knicks basketball we've ever seen. The Knicks are right now on this heater playing by margin of victory the best basketball we've ever seen. If you're the Spurs, you have to do everything right and a little bit more to break that kind of momentum. When you're taking on somebody that is on that kind of heater, you can't just be good. You have to be great. You can't just be great. You have to be flawless. Wemby has got to figure this out. Wemby's got to figure the turnovers out. The team's got to figure their three-point shooting out. The Spurs have to look at all of this and remind themselves that in order to snap the type of win streak we are seeing right now from the Knicks, you've got to play a level of clean basketball that's absolutely flawless. It's got to be picture perfect for the Spurs. That being said, they're capable of doing it. We saw it against OKC. Remember when everybody came in after the blowout loss, and then all of a sudden the Spurs came in locked in, no turnovers, and we said, oh, they figured it out. They finally figured out how to not turn the basketball over. This San Antonio team has figured out how to bounce back. This hasn't changed my thought on the series, but I do think that it's possible I didn't give the gift of momentum enough credit in this process, because the Knicks are a great basketball team, but they're a great basketball team that's also on a heater. And you don't just stop a heater by being good. You stop a heater by being perfect.
And by no means were the Knicks perfect last night at all. It was some ugly basketball for a while. It was ugly basketball really on both sides. I mean, the Knicks shot 11 of 36 from three. The Spurs, 11 of 43 from three. Like, there were some lobs. There were some air balls. There were some pretty brutal shots. But these are both two great defensive teams. Right? The Knicks, especially during the regular season, that was their calling card. They were a great rebounding team. They were a tough defensive team. The Spurs, obviously, the unanimous defensive player in the year in Victor Wembanyama. Like, we knew this was going to be a tough and gritty and physical and defensive game. So to see shot statistics like that is not necessarily stunning. But for the Spurs, that's not how you're going to win basketball games. You're not going to win basketball games by just lobbing threes up and, hoping and living on a prayer a little bit. You need more from Victor Wembanyama. Now, Victor Wembanyama cannot do everything. And there were times last night when the Knicks started to get on a heater late in the third quarter and into the fourth, that I was looking around like, is anybody going to help this guy? Like, Wemby couldn't do it all by himself. No, look, sometimes it feels like he can, right? Like, we know that Wemby is an alien. We know that Wemby is a superstar that's capable of taking any game over. But with a Knicks team that's playing the way that they're playing, to your point, with the amount of momentum that they had, the way that everything just started to click in the fourth quarter, that clutch gene really started to flex its muscle for Jalen Brunson in the fourth quarter. It didn't feel like there was anyone that was really willing to step up on the Spurs sideline, or at least anyone that was willing to take some of that load off of Victor Wembanyama. And I don't know if that's the moment was too big for a young team. I don't know if I really subscribe to that belief, because the moment wasn't too big in the Western Conference Finals against the reigning champions and back-to-back MVP. I think that's an easy and convenient argument. So I don't know if I subscribe to that belief. I don't know if it's just fatigue was setting in for the Spurs. I don't know what it was. But what I do know is Mitch Johnson is going to be making some of those adjustments to make sure that 26% from three doesn't happen in game two. And they don't go into New York down 0-2.
Which is the nightmare scenario. I know basketball fans don't watch a lot of hockey, but I'll remind you, in the hockey world, in this year's NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, Colorado was the best team throughout the course of the year. And when they got eliminated in 4 by Vegas, one thing their coach said afterwards is, we just ran into a buzzsaw. sometimes you run into a buzzsaw. And I think last night the Spurs were reminded they have run into a buzzsaw, a great team that's on one of the most historic heaters we've ever seen. So how they respond will be everything. We'll talk to Richard Jefferson in a little bit on this show. We'll ask him his thoughts. He was there last night calling the game. We'll get his thoughts from what he saw in person. But coming up next, time to get to a team that's being overlooked. Have we just forgotten about the Bears, or is Caleb about to remind us all, especially in the video game form?
He'll go to the bench here at quarterback after 4 interceptions by Rubinu. This is Donovan Porchery. Played for Duke City last year, and he flips it out. Jefferson all the way to the end zone for the touchdown. So he hits the quick strike to Jefferson near side, and Jefferson goes all the way across the field and gets to the end zone, and just like that, 1-of-1 and a touchdown for Porchery off the bench. 9th receiving touchdown of the year for Jefferson.
I mean, yeah, everyone loves to bring up all the pressure and tell me about the pressure. And I'm used to it. I've lived like this for quite some time now. For me, I just try to do my best to live in the moment. I wouldn't trade what I do for the world. So this is exactly where I want to be. And I just try to take it head on and enjoy every experience. I got a wonderful team and family behind me. And that's all that really matters.
What about the pre-fight talk? Do you feel like there should be a line?
I mean, can we look at it like comedy? I think that would be awesome.
You think that would be better? Even
well,
if you're
I
talking
think
about
if
moms and stuff.
I mean, that sucks if someone did, you know? Like,
yeah, okay.
I think, like, building up to it, like, if you and I were standing across from each other and we were going to fight, you'd probably say a bunch of stuff you really don't mean. You kind of let it go after 5 rounds in a ring with someone.
Orlando, 1 timeout left, but the game comes down to this right here. 4 feet away from the goal line in the win. It's DeLore to throw, near side, pass caught over the wall.
That's a touchdown.
He caught it over the wall.
Touchdown from
Touchdown, Orlando! A walk-off win. As dramatic of a finish as you will ever find, and a walk-off for the Pirates.
Wow, what a finish in Orlando.
70 said, no reaction. This is where everybody talks about the Madden curse, but I got to believe, look, and Caroline, some people just don't give a you-know-what about anything outside of their world. The number of times people will say to me, oh my God, and they'll start talking about some pop culture, this person battling this person dating this person. Like, I have no idea which Kardashian is dating which person. None. I don't even know which Kardashian is which other than Kim. So, like, I look at this, Ben Johnson, I know.
You can learn today. Not on this show.
Today.
Not around here, partner. No. We'll get flashcards. We'll get you up to speed here.
I don't. It just doesn't surprise me that Ben Johnson, of all people, who I think probably lives, eats, and breathes one thing, has no idea even if a Madden curse exists or what it means that his star quarterback is on the cover of Madden this year.
I do believe in the Madden curse. I do believe in the NCAA baseball #1 overall seed curse as well. These are bad omens. You know who was on the cover of Madden last year? Saquon. And not like Saquon had a bad year, but he didn't have a 2024 year. You know who was on the year before that? Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey played 4 games the next year. Not great, but also, like, come on. Like, coincidences are a funny thing. I honestly don't know why Ben Johnson's reaction was that. Maybe it is the Madden curse and he's all spooked out by it. Or maybe I do believe that there is a possibility that Ben Johnson is one of those, like, total sicko football guys that cares 0% about anything other than football and X's and O's and coaching and what's going on in practice the next day and how can you game plan to beat the Green Bay Packers. Like, I do think that he could be wired that way, and he straight up does not care. Like, does not care about anything that Caleb Williams does outside of the football field. I think he's an all-ball kind of guy.
Yeah, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. I'm also, like, I'll be honest, again, this is video game guy in me, because I buy Madden almost every year. I buy the college football game almost every year. And every year I say I'm going to play it, and then I simply don't have the time. But every year I buy it. And the one thing I'd say is, like, who cares who's on the cover anymore? It's like it's a tiny little icon that goes on your TV while you're looking for it. And you're like, there it is. Like, we're well past the days of going in and buying an actual physical disc. I'm saying that. But I think
The
what
cover
hit
is
me
cool,
about,
though.
yeah, no, I loved it. The cover art is
I
very
love
cool.
it. It's awesome.
But it hits me when we see this. Why are we not more hyped on the Bears? Think about it. You've got a former number 1 overall pick, a number 1 overall pick that exploded in his production, a number 1 overall pick that we've been paying attention to all the way back in college. So he has the benefit. It wasn't a surprise number 1 overall pick. Caleb Williams was expected. He's a number 1 overall pick in a draft that also had, I don't know, Drake May. And, you look at the names that were out there in that draft that we saw, that we seem to be hyping all the time. And I don't question any of why the other guys are getting hype. It just feels like we don't give Caleb that same level of hype. It feels like we don't give the Bears that same level of hype. It feels like we don't talk about Caleb Williams the same way we talk about Jaden Daniels. We don't talk about Caleb Williams the same way we talk about Drake May. We don't talk about the Bears. Like right now in a wide open NFC, other than the Rams and the Seahawks, you and I talked about the third best team, and we're like, oh yeah, maybe it's the Bears. Why do we not give the Bears more love?
I don't think we're giving a lot of love to the NFC North as a whole. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. One, the NFC West and the NFC East have dominated our offseason conversations. NFC West, the Seahawks just won a Super Bowl. The Rams just traded for Myles freaking Garrett. In the NFC East, you have John Harbaugh coming in. You have the Cowboys. You have the dramatic offseason that has been for the Philadelphia Eagles. We are such a what have you done for me lately society, and we are so driven by the news cycle in the NFL. And I think in the NFL, we all have shiny ball syndrome. Like, we're all distracted by the most intriguing and flashy news story that comes across our desks. So when Myles Garrett gets traded to the Browns and AJ Brown gets traded to the Patriots, and we have these big time blockbuster trades, when we have some off-season scandalous off the field kind of things that have been happening this past offseason. The Bears' moves of acquiring Khalif Raymond and Kobe Bryant, not that one, in free agency aren't really the flashiest or sexiest of moves to talk about. What have the Packers done this offseason? The Lions missed the playoffs last year. I don't expect them to miss the postseason again. I actually think the Lions are going to be a really good team this year, especially considering their light schedule. But the Lions haven't really done much for us to talk about. If there's any team we've been talking about in the offseason in the NFC North, it's the Vikings. And I think we all expect the Vikings to be kind of stinky this year. But what did they do? They went out and got Kyler Murray, and they have a quarterback controversy, and they have a coach that might be approaching the hot seat, and they have a star wide receiver that sounded disgruntled with the team back at this during the week of the Super Bowl. So, those are the things that are fun and sexy to talk about, not necessarily Garrett Bradbury, the center that the Bears acquired in free agency. So I don't think it's any sort of discounting Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams and what we think that they can do this season. I think it's more so just there's other bigger, sexier, flashier stories that have commanded our attention in the offseason.
I love your answer because it's less cynical than mine. I think as a society, we are slow to change our minds and our narratives. I think one thing that I'd like to think is the strength in how I cover sports is that I'm always willing to come in and say, hey, I was wrong, or hey, my opinion has changed. Hey, we have more data. I don't see a lot of that. Think about quarterbacks. Like when Lamar was going to be drafted by the Ravens, there were plenty of people that said he's never going to be a quarterback. And as a result, they just didn't want to allow him to be a quarterback, even when it was clear that he was. There were plenty of people. I walked around the halls and I watched plenty of people at ESPN at the time that were convinced Josh Allen would never fix his accuracy. And as a result, all they had to say were negative things about Josh until he was so good that then they had to change their opinion. And then all of a sudden it became, well, now he's the king of the world. Like nobody allows nuance in this conversation because narratives exist. I think about the way we talked about Caleb. At one point, it was everybody needs to suck if that gives them a shot at Caleb Williams. But then as we got closer and closer to him being drafted, remember that last year at USC, he's crying on the sideline with his mom after his loss. And suddenly people say, oh, he's not tough enough to lead a locker room. He paints his fingernails. I don't know why people care about that, but people care about that. So all of this became Caleb is soft. He's not the type of starting quarterback you should want. Then he goes to a dysfunctional Bears organization, and in the first year has terrible coaching. And then there's a question from that coaching staff since fired about whether or not Caleb is good enough. It feels like all of these things have just stacked against narratives with Caleb. And I see it. One of the tweets we had up earlier, first quarterback to be on the cover of Madden that hasn't thrown for 4,000 yards. What an arbitrary thing to single out. No so Bears weird. Quarterback. I mean, Caleb Williams threw for 3,942 yards again, making the 7th quarterback to feature on the Madden cover despite not topping 4K the year prior. What a weird number. What a weird thing to point out. But it speaks to the fact that people want to find this fault to Caleb. No Bears quarterback ever has thrown for 4,000 yards in team history, right? So if we're sitting here talking about Caleb Williams and 4,000 yards is the litmus, then like that's too much of a red zone society for me. Okay, you watch the stats, you see the red zone plays, you say he's good or he's bad based on whether or not he hit 4,000 yards. There has to be more nuance to all of this. Caleb Williams, I think, has grown and gotten better every year he's played the position. And he came in as a first overall pick with things to work on because most first overall picks have things to work on. But again, Jaden Daniels has spent more time watching football last year than playing it, and people want to give Jaden benefit of the doubt. Drake May was okay his first year and really good last year against the soft schedule, and everybody's, oh, Drake's the best of all of them. I think narratives are the reason people aren't buying in on Caleb Williams because there are a bunch of people that are hoping he fails so they can stand up and say, I never liked him in the first place, which is just, I think, the wrong way to cover sports. We shouldn't be hoping that our takes are right. We should be watching and trying to figure out what the right take is today.
And let's not forget, the Bears went to overtime with the Rams in the divisional round of the playoffs last year. Like, let's not forget about that. Let's not forget that Caleb Williams was Captain Clutch last year. Let's not forget that we're talking about the cover of Madden. That picture, that kind of jump throw that Caleb Williams is doing on the cover, that's what he literally did in the final 20 seconds of that game against the Rams to tie that game and send it to overtime. How many times did we just see Caleb Williams throw up a prayer or a Hail Mary in the final minute of a game to either win or tie it to take it to overtime? Like, he was so clutch last year. And we talk about the Rams. I've talked about the Rams of, look, at Super Bowl or bust this season. They're the best team in the NFL. They were a team that could have won the Super Bowl last year. Well, they were 142-yard field goal from Harrison Mevis away from not beating the Bears, from not potentially punching their ticket to the NFC Championship game. Can you imagine if that goes differently? A snowy, blustery, cold night in Chicago? Let's just say, because it's not like Harrison Mevis was, the best kicker of all time last year. Let's say Harrison Mevis misses that field goal, Caleb Williams gets the ball back, and the Bears win it and punch their ticket to the NFC Championship game. How different are we talking about Caleb Williams today? And of course that didn't happen, and you don't get credit for something that you didn't do. But that's how close it was. This is a game of inches, and it has drastically changed the way that we view two football teams and two quarterbacks.
It just continues to baffle me, the way that we cover all of this, and it's going to be interesting to see what level of success it will take to change people's minds about Caleb Williams and what level of success it will take for people to start buying in to a Bears team that looks like it could be really good. We'll continue to break down the NFL next. Coming up, one of our favorite reporters in the entire world, Jori Epstein, joins us next. We'll figure out what's going on in New England and more.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the 3, launches, got a man deep, caught! Touchdown! New Mexico! Damon Street with the answer.
Let's watch. There's Rubido gets drilled and just, poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
The UFC has just given me so much, and I've met so many great fans around the world, different states and things like that, and I'm just blessed. And like I said, I'm glass half full all the time. Even when things are not going my way, I find a way to look at the bright side. I'm just happy to be here, man. And one fight at a time. When it's all said and done, you know, I would love to have my last dance with the UFC.
What's it mean to you to see your squad still celebrated and embraced like this 40 years later?
It's pretty crazy, you know, to really still see this, and they haven't been in the winning circle since 40 years. It's time that they put it together. You know, 40 years of what this team that I played with, this is like the best team I played on in 86. I played on the 98 Yankees too, but this team here was a team that you just didn't want to mess with.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
Odell Beckham Jr. says he needed the turn away from football, but feels recharged to come back to the Giants. It's a pretty surreal feeling. I came here to earn it. That tweet comes out from Jori Epstein, who joins us now doing great work covering the senior NFL reporter for Yahoo Sports. You're already starting your wild summer. I never envy your travel schedule in the summer because I know how chaotic it is. So we appreciate you hanging out. What do you make of it? Because Odell was one of many signings. So do you believe that Odell, after seeing Giants practice and seeing him in person, can he make an impact on this Giants team, Jori?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the other signings, because each time we asked John Harbaugh about Odell Beckham Jr., he'd be like, okay, but don't forget, you got Juju over here and you got Braxton Berrios over here, and really was trying to democratize the conversation. I give Odell credit because he said, look, the Giants are the team that drafted me where I started my career. John Harbaugh, I played for in Baltimore. I don't want to be given a roster spot. I want to earn it. And he told John Harbaugh, if you have to cut me, you have to cut me, but let me have the chance, because I don't feel like I went out on my terms, and I want to show my son, his 4-year-old son now, that we don't give up in this household.
Oh, it's sweet. Like you mentioned, Odell Beckham Jr., Braxton Berrios, Juju Smith-Schuster, which that trio would hit much harder in like 2018 than it does in 2026. But what do those acquisitions say to you about the recovery of Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, I mean, John Harbaugh, as you might expect, is like, well, you know, when Malik's healthy, we have room for more receivers on the team. I think that it's Malik Neighbors. It's also that they've just had a bunch of Achilles tears lately. So I think it's kind of cumulative and kind of a, hey, we want to be aggressive. We want to have an understanding of every single receiver out there. But like you said, this is an older group. And when I looked yesterday of who older would be playing receiver than Odell Beckham Jr., the only one older who played last year, currently on our roster, is Devontae Adams. So yes, at 33 years old, he's not the average NFL receiver.
So a complicated question, but you'll be better able to answer it than anybody. Harbaugh comes in, and he has to set a culture. And things certainly got spicy on social media, given the fact that, you know, we have Jackson Dart introducing President Trump, as we all know, and then we have Abdul Carter commenting on it on social media. You were just around the team. What are the vibes like right now?
Yeah, the vibes to me did not reflect that. I think what was fascinating to me is I give John Harbaugh credit in the sense that on Friday of last week, the first availability after Jackson Dart introduced Trump and Abdul Carter commented publicly, they made everybody available. Jackson Dart spoke to the media. Abdul Carter spoke to the media. Jameis Winston talked about the team meeting they had. John Harbaugh talked. And to me, it was such like a relic of a bygone era to actually have players saying, here's what I believe in, here's my understanding and my responsibility to the team, rather than try and quiet this or move away and act like it's just going to disappear. We're going to actually say, here's what we believe in and here's what we mean as a team. They do have different beliefs. They do view the president in particular very different politically. And they also say, hey, we're still sitting next to each other in meetings. We're still not only fellow draft classmates, but fellow first-round draft classmates. So I think that John Harbaugh is an adult in the room in the sense of, let's just confront this. Things could change if it's week 3 and they're 0-3. I do understand that this is a very different time to try and have a team dynamic, but right now I don't sense any concerns.
It is so refreshing to hear that. Like, how hard is that to do? How hard is it to just say, hey, like, everybody go out there, speak your truth, back up your teammates? I do love to hear that that's kind of how the Giants are approaching things. So Fitz kind of asked about the vibes, and I think with vibes comes expectation. And when the Giants hired John Harbaugh, I felt like Giants fans everywhere rejoiced. We've got our coach, we've got our quarterback, we've got our running back and wide receivers of the future. We're beefing up our defensive line like we've got it. We've got all the pieces. I don't know if that's necessarily going to come to fruition for the Giants, but what is the sense of the expectation that you've gotten for this team?
Yeah, it's funny because, of course, you have the New York Knicks in the finals right now. And so John Harbaugh's putting on his Knicks hat and saying, look, I want to be there. I want to be the team of the city going to the championship. And Odell Beckham Jr. was asked, hey, what's the best case scenario for you coming back? And he goes, best case? I play well. We win a Super Bowl. I want to win for this team. I think that's unlikely in 2026. I've been wrong before. But I think when you look at it, there is kind of it's a young team. It's a relatively injured team. Yes, they beefed up the defensive line. They also traded away Dexter Lawrence. And I think on offense, I don't know, do you believe that Jackson Dart can stay healthy, some of which will be in his control in the sense of how much is he scrambling, how much is he exposing himself? Cam Scatterbo, when will he be back? Malik Neighbors, when will he be back? So as much as we want to say there's this talented young core, they're also a very injury-riddled core. And in the NFL, they say the best predictor of future injury is past injury.
We could talk to you about the Giants all day, but that's not the only team that you've been around. You were also around the Patriots. I'm going to ask you the same question I just asked about the Giants, because certainly there's been plenty of offseason controversy. What are the vibes like right now in New England?
Yeah, in New England, it's very different vibes. I would say that Mike Vrabel's kind of also got a handle on it, although very different leadership style than John Harbaugh. I think both of them are effective, but you have a quarterback in Drake May who was the runner-up for MVP, took them to the Super Bowl, and yet that team thinks he's just scratching the surface. You have a team that says, yeah, we just made it to the Super Bowl. We're also not going to rest on our laurels and assume we're fine. We're going to go trade for A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown was definitely really energizing that group. So I think that's a team that understands how they want to do things. They already have a culture developed from last year, and now they've just added a very talented piece to the mix.
We all know Mike Vrabel was at the center of a scandalous offseason story. Do you feel that's bled over into OTAs at all?
I wouldn't say on the field. I mean, look, it was my first time around the Patriots in a couple months, and I can tell you it certainly bleeds over into the Twitter mentions. I don't think that everyone forgot about the scandal because A.J. Brown was signed, but I didn't get the sense that that's what they're focused on. I mean, these guys knew Mike Vrabel before this became public. They've known him after, and even their new receiver, A.J. Brown, knew him in Tennessee. And so I think that this is a team that, for better and for worse, is very used to scandal. They've had quite a few in their franchise, both on-field scandals and off-the-field scandals, so I'm not trying to downplay the scandal, but I don't think that this is an organization who is facing a scandal for the first time.
So you watched A.J. Brown get his first shots at practice. What did you see from A.J. and how do the Patriots feel right now?
Yeah, when we were there, I asked Mike Vrabel, I'm like, I just want to be clear. He did complete and pass the physical, right, despite that degenerative knee condition, because we should not assume that. I mean, Fitz, as a Raiders fan, but A.J. Brown not only passed his physical on Tuesday morning when I was there, he went to practice that day. And again, obviously he's working in somewhat gradually, but he was catching balls from Drake May. He was working about one snap per series into team periods, always with the first team, which in comparison, Odell Beckham Jr. yesterday had some first team, some second team, some third team snaps. And AJ looked good. I mean, he was moving well. He was running the sprints, and there was one third down play during their 11-on-11 periods where there's a fifth-round rookie cornerback guarding him, and he kind of went out, had to come back, and totally lost the guys. So he's still got those movement skills. And I talked to general manager Elliott Wolf, who said he exceeded expectations in terms of what he was able to participate in well. And I just think when they look at his size, when they look at the big body, Drake May likes throwing downfield. He likes throwing to big receivers. A.J. Brown is both of those.
And with the addition of A.J. Brown, all of a sudden that wide receiver room feels a little bit more crowded. Kayshon Boutte's been absent from OTAs. We're hearing a lot of rumblings that he wants out of New England. What's the latest that you've heard on the Kayshon Boutte front?
Yeah, and the thing about the Patriots is they've got a couple guys, whether it's Kayshon Boutte, who could be on the move, Christian Gonzalez wanting a new contract and not being there yet. Again, this is still a voluntary portion, although they did move their mandatory mini camp up a week, so that'll be a little bit interesting in terms of attendance. I think it's kind of like a one step at a time. You need to make sure you got A.J. Brown before you did anything with Kayshon Boutte. I don't think it's out of the question that he's on the roster this year, but like you said, this is a crowded room and they have a lot of guys. Now, you still want some depth given injuries. Now, how much do you want to pay for that depth is another question, but it's interesting. To me, there's kind of this, these front offices are always having conversations. When I talked to Elliot Wolf about A.J. Brown, their general manager, de facto general manager, he told me, I started calling about A.J. Brown in 2024. And I was basically laughed at. That's part of the job. And then 2 years later at the combine, it's, hey, well, maybe we can change our tone a little bit. And so when you see that, I think that's relevant context for Kayshon Boutte of, do I think it's likely there have been calls on him? Absolutely. There should be calls on him, because if there's someone who's not guaranteed to be on the roster, and sometimes even when they are, see Myles Garrett, you should be making those calls. Do I think there's something imminent? That I think could go either way.
By the way, you see the tweet there. Check out Jori's writing on the trade. It's really excellent work. You mentioned the words Myles Garrett, which takes us right there. What finally made the Browns decide that it was time to move on from their superstar?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, you mentioned the word Myles Garrett, I would say the words Jared Verse. The Browns didn't want to move on from Myles Garrett without feeling like they were getting a high caliber pass rusher. No one is pretending that Jared Verse is Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is the sack record leader right now. He is the reigning defensive player of the year. The first time we've ever seen a reigning defensive player of the year traded in NFL history. They haven't even switched teams in free agency since 1997, according to Elias Sports. But they said, hey, we have Jared Verse, who, not Myles Garrett, no one's saying he is, but he's a two-time Pro Bowler in 2 seasons and Defensive Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. So you have to ask yourself, if this is a team, the Rams are clearly in their window. They're contending. They're trying to maximize the end of Matthew Stafford's window, and I think this can put to bed any questions about that conversation when Ty Simpson was drafted in the first round. The Browns, on the other hand, are rebuilding, and for a couple years now have kind of been like 2027 is the year we want to be competitive and go from there. They might need a quarterback. So you need the assets to get a quarterback, and then you say for Myles Garrett, well, what is the difference between Myles Garrett and Jared Verse? So a guaranteed Hall of Famer versus a Pro Bowl strong starter. And is it more or less than a 2027 first round pick, a 2028 second round, and a 2029 third round pick? And that's how I think we have to look at this, is that, yes, there is this element of we're not replacing the same guy, but you won't have complete questions at your pass rusher position. And you've got a lot of capital that you could either use directly, potentially to get a quarterback, or you can use as an asset to get something else.
Rams fans are spoiled because not only are they getting the reigning defensive player of the year, single season sack record in league history, but we're also now hearing we want Aaron Donald too. Have you heard anything on a potential Aaron Donald return?
Yeah, that'll be really interesting. I actually think it would be great for Myles Garrett. I mean, first of all, the Myles Garrett Rams marriage will be fascinating because we have pretty much seen a Myles Garrett who is getting all these sacks while playing from behind. Well, it's much easier to go chase the quarterback and have obvious passing situations if you are playing from ahead, which the Rams often do. Now, with Aaron Donald next to him, I think that would be even more difficult. And I think there's the on-field element, which I still believe Aaron Donald can play at a very high level if he wants to. But I also think there's this off-field element of the culture of what was expected of Myles Garrett in Cleveland is a little bit different than I would say the way that Aaron Donald was going about things with the Rams. And look, star players often are treated differently and are held to different standards. But I do think that clearly what Myles Garrett was doing was working for him. Was it always maximizing how a team could win and how he could lift the others around him? I think that's a question mark. Aaron Donald was that type of guy, and if that could bleed over into Myles Garrett and push him even more, that would fascinate me.
Jori, from the other side of this, you've always done such a smart and level-headed job of talking about the quarterback battle in Cleveland. I want to tie it to Myles Garrett here for a second. When you get rid of a Myles Garrett, I think you're partially acknowledging that you're probably not in a win-today championship mode. How does that decision impact the way Todd Monken approaches the quarterback battle this summer between Deshaun and Shedeur?
Yeah, that's a great question, Fitz. And I think that there's this element of if one of these guys looks this year like a franchise quarterback for the Browns, I don't think the Browns are going to fight that, especially if, and let's say it's Deshaun, for example. From a health standpoint, that's the biggest question for him. So he would have to stay healthy, not just play well. I think that Todd Monken is going to play the guy who most allows them to win now. I don't view this as a tanking situation. I view this as if these quarterbacks whose resumes and immediate past resumes, so I'm not talking Deshaun 5 years ago, do not mean that they have a quarterback answer in 2027. Now you have the capital to go increase your chances of getting a great player in the 2027 draft. But I don't think it's Deshaun is the better quarterback, for example, so we play Shador to try and lose games and get to the top of the first round. If anything, having 2 first-round picks kind of lessens the need to be at the top, and you still need to create a winning culture, because as much as I think that process-wise, I understand where the Browns are coming from, if you don't one day get out of the rebuild, this wasn't a win.
As always, you can read her. Go ahead, Caroline. Sorry, I was cutting her.
Last one before I let you.
Go ahead.
I want more Jori. We need more Jori.
I know.
People deserve more Jori.
We do. That's what we do.
Yeah, because we haven't even talked about it was Fitz's birthday yesterday. I'm about to get off the show without saying happy belated birthday to Fitz. So I agree. We need more of me so that I could do more of happy birthday Fitz, happy belated wedding to Caroline, all the things. What's your question?
Thank you.
Thank you. We've heard after the Myles Garrett trade, both sides of the perspective of the Ty Simpson pick. That for some people it was, well, this makes so much sense because the Rams knew they weren't going to have a first round pick next year to find their quarterback of the future. But I'm kind of the belief of, well, now you're trading away young players and the Rams have yet to commit to Puka and to some of these young players that are 2027 free agents. So now you're kind of like leaving Ty Simpson out to dry whenever he eventually takes over. What was your impression of the Ty Simpson pick now that the Myles Garrett trade has come to fruition?
Yeah, I think to me it doubles down on the fact that the Rams do not expect to be picking high in the first round next year, and they don't even expect to be picking in the middle of the first round next year. I think there are many teams around the league, and they are the betting Super Bowl favorites that think the Rams have a good chance at picking 30th, 31st, or 32nd, which is not going to get you a quarterback at the top of 2027. I think I agree with you. It's a huge loss to lose Jared Verse. Yes, you're getting Myles Garrett, but obviously them together would be more effective than them on their own. And I think that's why the Browns said, we're not parting with Myles Garrett if we're not getting a good pass rusher back. And so I think when you look at Ty Simpson, first of all, when is he playing? That's really kind of in Matthew Stafford's hands, Matthew Stafford, and I guess you could say God/the health of Matthew Stafford. But I think that this is a Rams team that has rebuilt and retooled in so many ways in recent years that I don't really see a 3-year stretch where they don't have the talent around Ty Simpson. So yes, there are questions about this roster. I think they have enough creativity in that organization, enough risk-taking that they'll figure it out.
You can read her on Yahoo Sports all summer. Going to be going around to every training camp imaginable. Jori, we got to make sure that you keep coming on and filling us in, especially if you have good things to say about the Raiders. That's the only birthday present I really want. Follow her on social media at Jori Epstein. Appreciate your time as always, my friend. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's great to see you.
Fitz, Caroline, great to see you both.
Thanks, Jori.
She does the best work and just makes me happy. She's so smart and she makes the whole room better when she's in it. All right, coming up next, you know who doesn't make the room better? The Falcons. We'll tell you why.
There's the toss to Kerrigan. He is destroyed at the 2-yard line.
And a great effort by Carson Taylor, defensive end. He makes Kerrigan really have to get wide here, and then good pursuit by the rest of the defense.
Arizona down by 3. Snap to Myler. There's the give to Clark. Open space, hurdles a defender, and he's tackled at the 17.
I loved Acuff all year. I mean, what an amazing college player.
Oh, yeah.
It's just his prototype in the NBA concerns me. But Acuff to me is the one that says, you know, is he as good as Trae Young offensively? Probably not. Is he as bad defensively as Trae Young? Probably. And
you hope not.
You know, there's a question about how playable Trae Young is, even with the skill set that he has.
What's the difference between your show and their show?
I'm going to say we have the superior talkers because I'm on the show, and nobody's a better talker than me in all of professional wrestling. That's just a fact. We just feel really special, and we feel very distinct. And I think the biggest reason why, more than anything else, is because when I'm watching All Elite Wrestling, I don't feel like I am watching somebody play a character.
Pretty low scoring first half with 5:38. Gonna send it deep. And Puka Williams out of his own end zone. Out across the 10 with a seam.
He's out of
Williams
there.
on the run. Inside the 20, breaks the tackle of the kicker, but Sutherland got just enough to trip him up. Huge return down to the 13-yard line.
And the guys are going to make fun of him because he got tackled by the kicker to stop him from scoring a touchdown.
Holy smokes.
Drake London is the first massive extension for the Falcons this offseason. We all know that Bijan is coming up. We all know that Kyle Pitts is coming up. They got people to get paid, and this was a huge deal. But I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, I don't know. All these players we're talking about were on the Falcons last year, and you know what the Falcons weren't? Good. So, yeah, you've got to pay your young talent. But what do you – like? This is that hard part where you have to pay the young talent. You got to make sure you keep the talent in the room. But it still doesn't make you a good football team, Caroline. Like, they're going to have to pay Drake, Bijan, and Kyle Pitts, but they're also going to have to figure out how they pay those guys and actually, I don't know, win enough games.
So I view the Falcons like I viewed my baking venture yesterday. I was trying to make chocolate chip cookies. I had all the ingredients, flour, sugar, eggs, so on and so forth. I didn't have chocolate chips. So what was I going to make? Chocolate chip cookies with no chocolate chips? That's how the Falcons are. They have Drake London. They have Bijan Robinson. They have some young defensive talent. They have no quarterback. So if you don't have the most important piece in football, the most important position in football, I'm not going to have any faith in you. And no, Michael Penix Jr. and Tua, however much Kevin Stefanski wants to call Tua the most accurate quarterback in the NFL, which is what he said, by the way. It's what he said. That wasn't an Onion article. That wasn't me making something up. He actually legitimately said that. Then if your options are Michael Penix Jr. or Tua Tagovailoa, I don't care if you have Drake London and Bijan Robinson, two of the most exciting and explosive young offensive players in the National Football League. I cannot project that you are going to be a postseason team or contending for the division, even in a division that feels pretty crappy and pretty wide open. I can't put the Falcons in any sort of conversation of playing meaningful football games when you don't have a definitive answer at the quarterback position.
That's the hardest part about this. Like, I'll relate it to a team that you guys know I love and support, and that's my beloved Raiders. I'll take you back to 2022. 2022, thank you very much, was a year where Josh Jacobs had 1,653 yards rushing. 1,653 yards rushing. In that season, Max Crosby had 12 and a half sacks. We are talking Devontae Adams had over 1,000 yards receiving in that season. That was epic performance for a team that won 6 games. You can have great players and not win a lot of football games. And this happens all the time. This is the hardest part about understanding roster construction for all of us, is that you need to draft great players and then you don't win, but then you need to re-sign your draft players, great players, because you got to have great players, but also you're not winning football games with them. Football is won from 53. It's a 53-man sport. Now, we put a lot of weight on the quarterback, and you're right. I think the Falcons don't have a quarterback answer in the building. I do not believe the future quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons is currently in the facility at all. Let me be clear about that. So part of the reason I don't believe the Falcons can be great is I don't believe in Michael Penix Jr. being a sustainable, great starting quarterback. I don't believe in Tua as a reclamation project being a great, sustainable starting quarterback. I don't know how Kevin Stefanski is going to get enough juice out of any of that to squeeze to make it actually worthwhile. I don't believe the Falcons have their quarterback. But also, as much young talent as they have, I'm not sure 1 to 53 they're good enough to win a lot of football games. So they keep paying people. They keep winning just enough games to not be good enough to get their guy. And then I look at what they're going to have to deal with next year. You cannot guarantee you can outsuck the rest of the NFL. You could put that on shirts. I need to trademark that. I say it every week. So if the concept is we'll just get our quarterback next year, well, you might have to be worse than a winless Arizona team. As I keep telling the world, 4 teams in the NFL won 3 games last year. Only 3 games. And one of them picked 4th. So even if you think, we're just going to suck, we'll get our quarterback next year, you could win 3 games next year and still not be in a spot to get a quarterback. So, this is what makes the Falcons so frustrating for me, because I want them to be great. I want the Falcons to be a great football team. They have some great pieces, but there to me is literally no reason to believe that those individual great pieces that were on the roster last year are suddenly going to turn into a 12-win team this year.
And that's the most difficult position to be in, I think, in sports, is not having your quarterback is bad enough, especially in a league that's only getting, more and more elite quarterbacks that start to spring up. I mean, that 2025 class with Caleb Williams and Drake May and Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I mean, that's the perfect example of your path to a potentially elite quarterback, or a quarterback that can get you to the promised land, is being bad enough in a year that you're lucky enough that there's a good enough quarterback that you can draft. Just ask the Jets how difficult it is to be bad enough and lucky enough to be in a year with a good enough quarterback crop. I mean, last season, there was one guy that any of us viewed as a legitimate, first round quarterback, and that was Fernando Mendoza. So it's not just being not having that position. It's even worse when you don't have a path to that position. Because I think with Drake London and with Bijan Robinson, you're going to be good enough to win some games. I mean, Bijan has that ability, that take the game over kind of ability, like Jonathan Taylor has, Jahmyr Gibbs has, Saquon Barkley has, Christian McCaffrey has. I'm not saying he is those guys, but he is the caliber of running back that he can take a game over. He can win you some games. I think Bijan Robinson is good enough to win you 2 games, net 2 games, above maybe expected. So you're going to win enough games, and you're in a bad enough division that you can beat up on the bad teams in your division. But you're good enough to beat up on some bad teams, but you're not bad enough to really, really suck. So you are stuck in the mucky middle. And this is the worst year, I think, to be stuck in the mucky middle without a quarterback, because there are enough teams that are going to be so bad. The Dolphins, the Cardinals, the Jets, probably the Browns. All of those teams, I think right now, I view as in worse positions than the Falcons, but in better positions to draft a quarterback. And realistically, how many future franchise quarterbacks are going to be in the 2027 draft? Everybody tells me how deep and great and talented this 2027 draft is. Yeah, well, we said that about the 2026 draft when we were talking about Cade Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier. How'd that pan out?
Yeah, to your point, I've pulled up Tankathon, which right now ranks teams based on by their projected win totals from Vegas. The projected draft order: Miami, number 1, will need a quarterback. Arizona, number 2, will need a quarterback. The Jets, number 3, will need a quarterback. The Browns, picking at 4. If the Browns are picking 4th, they're going to need a quarterback. The Titans at 5, I don't think are going to be in the quarterback market. The Raiders at 6, no. So right now, the Falcons are projected to pick 7th based on win total. There's going to have to be 5 epic quarterbacks to even get you to 1 based on this that we see right now. That's what makes it all difficult. There's no question that the Falcons have talent. There's no question to me that the Falcons play in a soft enough division. They should be able to make a run every few years. They should be able to, depending on what we see this year from the growth of the Panthers. If you want to buy in that the Buccaneers are still all in, you and I have talked about that. We're not going to buy into that right now. Maybe if you're a Saints fan, you're buying that Tyler Shuck is going to have a massive, massive explosion in his second year, and suddenly you're going to see something. But the Falcons feel to me like they're a hell of a lot closer to finding the basement in this division than they are finding the ceiling. They feel like they're closer to being out of this entire conversation than they are being at the top of it. And that's not because they don't have talented pieces. It's just we haven't seen those talented pieces come together in any sort of a meaningful way. Like, having talent has never been the problem for the Falcons. Coaches have been fired over and over and over again because the perception has been we have too much talent to win this many games. We should be far better than we are. But at some point, if every time we end a season, we say, well, the Falcons should be better, either we're misevaluating the talent, we're misevaluating the culture, we're misevaluating the way that talent plays together. We're getting something wrong on the Falcons because I feel like almost every year they're presumed to be a team that could make a leap, and every single year they fall short of that.
I think it's because we're ignoring the quarterback position. because we're looking at all of the other great
Fair.
supplementary pieces around the quarterback. We're like, oh, yeah, we'll figure out the quarterback position. The quarterback will be fine because you have all these pieces around him. No, that's not necessarily the case. You can't just make a quarterback who's not a starting quarterback in the National Football League look like a starting quarterback in the National Football League just because you drafted him to be that, or he was drafted to be that, or you paid him to be that. You can't just make a quarterback out of, you can't make chicken salad of chicken, you know what. So I think we're just ignoring how massive of a hole that Falcons quarterback position is, or people who say the Falcons should be better are ignoring that they have not addressed the most important position in sports. But I do think it was smart, though, of the Falcons to go ahead and get on the Drake London deal. Puka Nacua is going to be due a new deal. Chris Olave in the same draft class is going to be due a new deal. And so I think George Pickens is going to get a new deal, not in Dallas, but somebody's going to pay George Pickens like a wide receiver one, and the wide receiver market is going to balloon. So I think it's smart of them to go ahead and get this deal done and get ahead of it.
Yeah, there's no doubt he deserves this mega contract. No doubt about that. Also, no doubt that every time I say making chicken salad in the Northeast, people just look at me. It's a Southernism, but I love it. It makes totally complete sense. So, yeah, apparently, I guess. I can't find. Yeah, I say making chicken salad all the time, and people just look at me. All right, you know who made chicken salad last night? The Knicks, and they made glorious gourmet chicken salad by absolutely taking down the Spurs in Game 1. Coming up, we'll talk to Richard Jefferson. We'll get his take. He was there. He saw it in person. We'll figure out what he saw coming up next.
There's the toss to Kerrigan. He is destroyed at the 2-yard line.
Yeah, and a great effort by Carson Taylor, defensive end. He makes Kerrigan really have to get wide here, and then good pursuit by the rest of the defense.
Arizona down by 3. Snap to Myler. There's the give to Clark. Open space. Hurdles a defender, and he's tackled at the 17.
I loved Acuff all year. I mean, what an amazing college player.
Oh, yeah.
It's just his prototype in the NBA concerns me. But Acuff to me is the one that says, is he as good as Trae Young offensively? Probably not. Is he as bad defensively as Trae Young? Probably. And
you hope not.
There's a question about how playable Trae Young is, even with the skill set that he has.
What's the difference between your show and their show?
I'm going to say we have the superior talkers because I'm on the show, and nobody's a better talker than me in all of professional wrestling, and that's just a fact. We just feel really special, and we feel very distinct. And I think the biggest reason why, more than anything else, is because when I'm watching All Elite Wrestling, I don't feel like I am watching somebody play a character.
Pretty low scoring first half with 5:38. Going to send it deep. And Puka Williams out of his own end zone. Out across the 10 with a seam. Williams on the run. Inside the 20. Breaks the tackle of the kicker, but Sutherland got just enough to trip him up. Huge return down to the 13-yard line.
And the guys are going to make fun of him because he got tackled by the kicker to stop him from scoring a touchdown.
Holy smokes.
New York strikes first in San Antonio. Brunson and the Knicks take Game 1 on the road. Caroline, hot take. I think the most incredible game in an NBA series is always Game 2 because we see everybody got that chance. They go back and they watch the film. They have the chance to make their mini adjustments. What we saw last night from Brunson, I don't know how you adjust to that. I don't know how you adjust to a player being that hot in the fourth quarter, taking over that much. You mentioned it earlier. I think the clutch conversation about Jalen Brunson can't be oversold at this point. What he's done for this franchise in clutch moments over and over and over again, and then doing it last night in the fourth quarter of the finals are the sort of things that truly do make magical legacy moments.
Fourth quarter on the road in the NBA finals when you figure 14-point deficit in the third quarter in a building that is as rocking as and electric as it was in San Antonio. So, and especially too, Jalen Brunson was hurt twice in that game. There was a moment in that game after his knee got dinged that I thought, oh no, like it's over. Like if Jalen Brunson is done, then not only are the Knicks not going to win game one, they're not going to win this series. And then you saw the bloody knee. So I mean, Jalen Brunson in this game was battered and bruised, and he still had his Superman cape on in the fourth quarter. It's what he does best. And Richard Jefferson will join us here in just a moment. He had, front row seat to what we saw last night. So I'd be intrigued to get his perspective on this. But I do think there is a fair argument and a fair conversation to have about Jalen Brunson being one of the most clutch players in the history of the NBA. He has it. And I don't know how you quantify that. I don't think you can teach that. It's not something that you can coach. It's something you have up here, and it's something that you have in here. It's something that Kobe Bryant had, something that Michael Jordan had, and something that we have seen Jalen Brunson to continue to deliver on, and that is stepping up in the biggest moments, even in a double-digit deficit.
Well, let's bring in Richard Jefferson now, joining us. RJ, man, appreciate your time this morning. I know you had a late night last night, early morning this morning in San Antonio. Thanks for hanging out with us. When you see Brunson go off in the fourth quarter like that, like I really don't care about the rest of his game. The fourth quarter was so magical. From somebody that played, what stood out to you in that moment?
That the Knicks didn't have that the Spurs didn't have a player like him. We're sitting next to each other, me, Tim Legler, Mike Breen, and we're like, hey, if this gets down to the last 3 to 5 minutes and it's a tie game, it's in that type of situation, the Knicks have the best player on the court. Now we're not talking about all the other things. It's like if you got a crunch time, clutch time situation, the Knicks are in a much better situation than a lot of other teams. Like you would look at Luka's one of those closers, Shea's one of those closers, Brunson's one of those closers, Braun, Steph. There's 5 or 6 guys that you're like, hey, in the last 3 to 5 minutes, if it's a tie game, whoever's team that guy's on, I like that team. And Jalen Brunson, he's proven it time and time and time again.
I just brought up the question, and I want your thoughts on it. Is it fair to have the conversation that Jalen Brunson is one of the most clutch players in the history of the league?
It is 100% fair, statistically speaking. It is fair. The numbers show that. But, ultimately, like clutch players and players in that space, he is in the finals. He is in a conference final. So you look at it from that standpoint. But, when you start to really kind of separate those it's the Kobe's, it's the Brons, it's the Steph. You got to be able to have a championship under your belt because you have to be clutch in the most clutch moments on the biggest stage. And he's done it up until this point. But for him to kind of cement that, I think 100%. He's one of the most clutch guys, statistically speaking, especially during his stretch here with the Knicks. I would just say that, him finishing it off is one of those things that will cement that permanently. Yes.
So I'm still shook by Cat, right? A few months ago, everybody was like, God, trade him. He's a bum. He can't do it. Like, he's not a fit. Mike Brown can't get it right. And everybody's in their fields. And now all of a sudden I watched last night and Cat squares up over and over and over again. What has changed for Karl Anthony Towns?
First of all, yes, you're right. After he got that stop against Wemby, he looked over at kind of the scores table, and Mike is a legend and consistent and calls the Knicks games, and he was just like, that's how you play defense. That's what you do. And I would say this about Karl Anthony Towns. People don't give him enough credit. Even when his offense was going up and down, and I asked him this question in our meeting, his rebounding numbers, he's always been a top 5 rebounder. It's double digits, whether he's scoring 32 or whether he's scoring 18. You look up and he's got 13, 14, 15 rebounds every single night. So his mentality defensively, defensive rebounding is still defense. So in that space, he's always been a dominant player. I think when Mike Brown kind of changed the offense and put the ball in his hands more, I think that was the final piece of the puzzle. I think he had sacrificed. I think Jalen Brunson had sacrificed. But once they got the ball in his hands, it put him in a position where he's not shooting more, but he's involved more. They allow him to be a playmaker, and he has proven. He had that pass to Landry Shamet where he kind of threw Landry Shamet open. That's a difficult pass. That's a tough pass. And he takes pride in that. So I think the offense has given him even more confidence and fueled him even more on the defensive end. And I think the defensive challenges that he's taken, he should take them personal. Big men should take other challenges against big men personal. I think it's part of the reason why we struggled with what happened in the OKC series. But if you're a point guard playing against another point guard, you should take it personal. And what I see for Cat is that there's another 7-foot guy that's versatile, that can shoot, that can do all the things. He's just 6 inches taller than Karl Anthony Towns, and he took it personal and did an outstanding job.
I want to stick on Cat for a moment because there was a post game little bite that went viral of Cat talking about how it felt like he was playing like a kid. He said he looked up at his mom in the stands. It felt like he was playing free. He was having fun. It just felt like a youth basketball game to him. As somebody who's been on this stage multiple times before, how do you interpret that?
I think there's joy that comes from the game of basketball and playing basketball at the highest level, right? Some people feel pressure, some people feel stress, some people feel joy, some people feel at home. Like Jalen Brunson, he feels at home in the last 5 minutes of a tight game. That's where he locks in the most. He's like, oh, perfect, let's go. And I think for Karl Anthony Towns, the thing that you have to do is find the key. Is it playing with intensity? Some guys want to talk trash to get them motivated. Steph Curry notoriously likes to smile and find joy. And for Karl Anthony Towns, he's got a Knicks uniform on. He grew up in the tri-state area. So for him to be there and in those moments, if you find joy in that, the challenge becomes fun. The person you're playing against, it becomes fun. Like, yes, this is what I want. This is what I've dreamt about since I was a little kid. And so for him to explain it that way is really the most beautiful side of the game of basketball, where you're playing basketball in your backyard, you're playing against your brother. When you can kind of like put that in your mental and bring that into the game, it's not game one of the NBA finals. It's like, no, I'm hooping with my boys in the park and we're laughing and joking. Like, I could do this all day. Let's run it back. So that's what I see when I see players playing with joy.
Wemby, though, told Malika, I think interestingly, that maybe their youth is an advantage for the Spurs going into this series. They don't know what they don't know. From where you were sitting last night as the game went on, how did pressure impact the end of this game?
I don't think really pressure impact. They won a game 7 against the defending champions on the road. Game 1, fourth quarter, that's not, let me be, again, I don't sit up here and say I know everything about basketball. What I'm saying is, if you win a game 7 on the road against a defending champion, pressure is no longer a part of the equation for you, because that's the most intense. That's the go to the NBA finals and to do it on the road. So to be in the last, 5 minutes of a game, and they had to win 2 games against the defending champions. So if you got to win 2 games against the defending champions, you're down 3-2. You got to go on the road. You got to win a game 7. Game 1 of the NBA finals is not more pressure. It is not. Like, just let me help people understand, because there's so much more room. You have room for error. And so if you had to play 2 games against the defending champs with no error and no opportunity for mistakes, game 1 isn't stressful. Game 1's not pressure.
I know June 19th, 2016 had to be one of the best days of your life. So what can you tell us about the Richard Show's 2016 NBA championship episodes?
First of all, I can't believe that we've made it this far. I did Tim Duncan as my first episode like 3 years ago. And Tim, one of my good friends, even though he refuses to tell that publicly, but I'm the only person that can get him to come out of his cave. And so we did it, and we kind of, enjoyed it. And so last year, I really focused on calling the finals and really focused on calling games. And, once, I got through that, I wanted to work on this project of bringing fun back to basketball talk, bringing joy back to it. And we started it off with 5 or 6 episodes. I was like, I just want to do like 3 or 4 episodes in the first half, maybe 3 or 4, just like 8 to 10 episodes max. And 25 episodes later that we did, and as we were kind of going through this, it was like, oh, 2016, you should start interviewing some guys. And I'm like, maybe we should interview a bunch of guys and do it for the postseason. And that's really where it came about. And JR, Iguodala, Amon Shumpert, Tristan, Kevin Love, and a few more surprises. They all wanted to sit down and talk, and for me, it was great. It was to relive that moment, to relive one of the great basketball eras. We look at, you look at the Jordan era in the 90s. You go look at, Shaq and Kobe when they dominated. When you go look at the Lakers Celtics rival, the Cavs Warrior rival, it will go down in NBA history. They met in the finals 4 straight times. And so to be a part of that and to have that, obviously, that epic series, and then to sit down with guys 10 years later and say, hey, what do you remember about this? What were your thoughts about this? What do you remember this story? And to be able to give that to basketball fans. This is for fans. I know the stories. So to give it to fans, it meant a lot to me. But this has been an amazing opportunity. I feel blessed that so many guys, Jalen Brunson sat down on the show. We had Stephon Castle sit down on the show. So to see my peers, even guys I didn't play with, but the NBA Brotherhood peer wanting to sit down is awesome. But I'm so excited about these episodes. I think fans, even if you weren't, there's fans that were, of a certain age, and there's younger fans that now we get to reintroduce them to the history of basketball. That to me, it brings me, so much happiness.
So when you sit there last night and you're calling a finals game and you think back to your finals time, what's the moment you think back on? Like, what's your favorite finals memory?
I was very fortunate. I played against the Spurs in the finals. I played against Shaq and Kobe. I have a lot of them. I'm looking at Carter Bryant, and he's a rookie. He went to Arizona, and he's out here guarding the best players in the world. My rookie year, we make it to the finals, and I'm guarding Kobe. So I just have these little bitty memories throughout. My second year, we played against the Spurs, and we had won 10 games in a row going into that series, very similar to the Knicks. So there's just so many little things that kind of trigger like joy for me within the basketball space. But the finals memory, I would say, looking back on it, we were so close. And looking back on it, now I have literally, 15 brothers that I love, that I would do anything for, that we consistently show up for each other even 10 years later. Because some guys, your teammates, you move on. Some guys, you have great playoff runs and you guys are still boys. But to see the group and to be able to collectively say we support each other still, because all these guys coming on the show was just support. And they were like, hey, let's relive, let's have some fun. So that's really my favorite memory, is that finalizing and winning that championship, really made us brothers forever.
Man, that was such a special run. And both of these teams here have the ability to make those same kind of memories as well. So as we put a bow on game 1, what do you expect to see from both of these teams in game 2?
I think we're going to see a more forceful Wemby. I think, experience sometimes isn't just have you played in these moments. Sometimes experience is have you played 20 plus games extra? Right. Has your body been able to go through that? Have you been able to recover and play mentally, your focus, emotional? There's emotional tolls that come when you see tears in a game 7, which is you should have. And then you got to tee it back up 2 days later, 3 days later. That takes a lot. Emotions take toll on your body physically also. And so that's where people say, don't get too high, don't get too low. So when I look at this, I look for a different energy inside of San Antonio tomorrow. And I look for them to answer, because nobody wants to go back to the Garden down 0-2. But I also look at the Knicks as a very, very hungry team. They want to take control of this. People think, oh, you're happy to get one. They've won 12 in a row. So there's anybody that thinks that the Knicks will be happy just getting this one and then they're going to go back and they stole one on the road. They want to steal everything. The New York Knicks want to steal everything, including that Larry O'Brien trophy. And the San Antonio's job is to try and stop them.
You guys can check out the Richard Show's 2016 NBA Championship episodes. It's great work. And again, last night, I know everybody hates everything in every broadcast. You guys were great. At one point when it said, "Hey, Legs, how's this for your first NBA Finals broadcast?" Like this tandem is amazing to listen to. It makes the games a blast. You guys are doing great work, Richard. We appreciate your time, man. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me, guys.
That's
Thanks,
great stuff
Richard.
from Richard Jefferson. Can't wait to check out the championship episodes. You can listen and talk about that all day. Coming up next, we'll get back to the NBA in a minute, but some big news for the Packers. We'll break it down.
Rubido's going to have to stand in there. He's going to take a lot of big hits because they're going to give up pressure.
Fake handoff from the three, launches, got a man deep, caught, touchdown, New Mexico, Damon Street with the answer.
Let's watch, there's Rubido gets drilled and just, I mean, poorly timed on the defensive play by or Decius. Decius jumps and the ball's not even there yet, but a great play though for New Mexico.
The UFC has just given me so much. And I've met so many great fans around the world, different states and things like that. And I'm just blessed. And like I said, I'm glass half full all the time. Even when things are not going my way, I find a way to look at the bright side. I'm just happy to be here, man. And one fight at a time, when it's all said and done, you know, I would love to have my last dance with the UFC.
What's it mean to you to see your squad still celebrated and embraced like this 40 years later?
It's pretty crazy, you know, to really still see this, and they haven't been in the winning circle since 40 years. It's time that they put it together. You know, 40 years of what this team that I played with, this is like the best team I played on in '86. I played on the '98 Yankees too, but this team here was a team that you just didn't want to mess with.
Felix Harper, 7 of 11 in the first half. The efficiency has been the name of the game for him so far this season. Handoff left side, down the near boards, open space, and JT Stokes in for the touchdown for Fishers. And JT Stokes get a carry off the left side on the first play from scrimmage in the second half and houses it.
Packers star Micah Parsons makes clear that he'll begin the 2026 season on the PUP list, offering a target of mid-October until he's on the field. That from Ian Rappaport as we try and figure out what that means for the Packers moving forward. And certainly Micah starting on the PUP list is a little bit of a concern here because this Packers defense looked wildly different with him and without him. That's why they traded to get him, right? That's why Micah was such an important piece. So for Packers fans, Caroline, I know they don't want to panic, but I don't know how you don't have at least a little bit of puckered up from all of this.
Of course, it's unsettling. I mean, Micah Parsons is, I would say, the second best edge rusher in the NFL, only behind Myles Garrett. You traded for Micah Parsons because you felt like you were in a Super Bowl window, and I don't think that the Packers can capitalize on that window without Micah Parsons. But also, did we expect anything different? I mean, Micah tore his ACL on December 14th. To expect Micah to be back at 100% at the beginning of September, I think is a little bit lofty. So the October return window is probably where we all should have expected Micah to come back. But, important to point out too, just because a guy is back and is available to come back in October does not mean that we're going to get 100% Micah. I think that's a lofty expectation for anybody coming back from an ACL tear. But, Fitzy, would you consider October 18th mid-October?
Yeah, I'll call that mid-October, yes.
Great, fabulous, because that would be the perfect date for Micah to return, because you know what happens that day.
What?
The Packers play the Cowboys. So I think that's awfully theatrical and awfully cinematic for Micah to make his ACL return the day that the Packers play the Cowboys, and there's plenty of bad blood to be shared between the Cowboys and Micah. But before then, the Packers play. They open the season on the road at Minnesota. That's a game that they should win. Then they go on the road to the Jets. That's a game they should win. And then they get the Falcons at home. They should win that game. They go on the road at Tampa Bay. I would guess that's a game that the Packers should win. And then they have a matchup with Chicago. That's kind of a toss-up game. But realistically, even without Micah Parsons, you're looking at a schedule where the Packers should be 4-1 I would say, 4-1 going into that game with the Cowboys. So those are all games, or 4 of those 5 games are all games that even without Micah, the Packers should be able to win. So if you're 4-1 going into that matchup with the Cowboys, where you're going to get a pissed off and motivated Micah Parsons, I think the Packers can find themselves in a pretty good position even without him.
Yeah, well, and look at the stretch, as you mentioned, the calendar. I hadn't looked at their schedule that comes after that. Dallas, then at Detroit, then a short week for Carolina. Those are 3 big games in a row. Then 2 New England after the mini bye. Then they get Minnesota again. Then they go to the Rams. So they have a little bit of a gauntlet right there in the middle.
Yeah.
It's far more important that they get Micah for that than it is that they have Micah at the beginning of the season. Also, you didn't trade from this is what I remind fans of all the time. You didn't pull off a mega trade for week 1. Week 1 really doesn't matter. We watch teams start slow all the time, especially now in a world where so many NFL teams simply don't play their starters in the preseason. They come out there a little bit still to the first week. Like the first month of the NFL season has become very similar to the first 6 months of the NBA and Major League Baseball season. We just sit there and we say, well, maybe, I don't know, like could be, right? So I think the first month of the season, everybody's feeling themselves out, trying to figure out what their team looks like. So if I'm the Packers and I'm a Packers fan, I'm not worried about, I just want to tread water. I want to make sure that I'm in the playoff conversation. Then we get Micah back. Then we start playing our best football. How often do we hear great players and former coaches tell us that true teams, championship contending teams are rounding into form around Thanksgiving? That's when you should be the best version of yourself. Well, if Micah gets back in mid-October, he'll be rounding into form around Thanksgiving. The Packers rounding into form around Thanksgiving. As long as the Packers have the best version of Micah that they could possibly get through the holidays, I don't think they have, especially when you mention the schedule that they have. I'm not panicked about that schedule at a level that feels that they can't even dig themselves out of a hole if they have to. So I think there's a little bit of relax here and understand that what you want in Micah is the best that he can be in December of next year, not the best that he can be in September in a game that really doesn't matter against the Jets in week 2.
And if you can't beat the Jets in week 2 without Micah Parsons, you've got much bigger issues on your hands than just Micah Parsons' return and Micah Parsons ramping up to 100% form after an ACL tear. Like, if you can't go into Minnesota, a team that I think has way bigger issues than they have higher hopes, and you can't beat that team, a divisional opponent, without Micah Parsons, you've got way bigger issues. If you can't beat some of these teams that don't have a quarterback without Micah Parsons, then that's on you. That is much bigger than a Micah Parsons question mark. I'm looking at the Micah Parsons games, the one that really pop off the schedule. Of course, those 2 matchups with Chicago, the early season one on October 11th. You get that one at home. But of course, I don't think you're going to get, if you even get Micah on the field, you're not going to get 100% Micah Parsons. But I'm looking at that Christmas matchup in Chicago. That's one that you should be circling on your calendar. I'm looking on the road at the Rams on November 25th. I'm looking at that week 18 last game of the season matchup against the Lions. I'm looking at going on the road at New England. And although that's not an NFC matchup, I still think that's a critical matchup and one that a lot of eyeballs are going to be on. Those are the important games for the Packers, because I don't think the Packers' expectations this year are, oh, let's just, go 9-8, 10-7 and see if that's enough to get us into the postseason. No, I think the Packers' expectations this year, I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust by any means, especially by how top heavy the NFC feels. But the Packers' expectations are much larger than, hey, let's win enough regular season games and just hope that we can find ourselves in the postseason.
Well, and with all that being said, to speak to how good the Packers are, right now, even knowing what we know about Micah Parsons' health availability, Vegas has their projected win total at 10.5 wins. So knowing that Micah is going to miss the first month and a half of the season at least, and then have to round himself into shape, and then have to be who he can be, they're still, DraftKings still looking around, and they have some tough games on that schedule. They're still calling them a 10.5 win team. So I think this just speaks to the fact that they are still a good football. I don't know. 10.5 feels rich for me with all that's up against them. But Vegas certainly sees the Packers as a legitimate contender, even knowing that Micah is going to miss some time.
10.5 feels rich, but they have the Jets, the Falcons, the Panthers. Obviously, the Vikings twice on their schedule. They get the Saints in New Orleans, but still a game they should win. They get the Dolphins. I mean, how many games was that I just listed? Six
That's
or seven?
We got 7. That's 7.
That's
right there.
7 wins right there that if the Packers just do what they're supposed to do, those are 7 easy wins.
That's crazy. They got the 7 wins out of no time, and you're right. That could lead them right to 10.5. From 7 wins to 1. Last night, we got a massive win for the Knicks. We'll talk to somebody that knows better than anybody what it means for the franchise, what it means for the sport, what it means for the team. Ashley Nicole Moss going to join us next.
There's the toss to Kerrigan. He is destroyed at the 2-yard line.
Yeah, and a great effort by Carson Taylor, defensive end. He makes Kerrigan really have to get wide here, and then good pursuit by the rest of the defense.
Arizona down by 3. Snap to Myler. There's the give to Clark. Open space, hurdles a defender, and he's tackled at the 17.
I loved Acuff all year. I mean, what an amazing college player.
Oh, yeah.
It's just his prototype in the NBA concerns me. But Acuff to me is the one that says, you know, is he as good as Trae Young offensively? Probably not. Is he as bad defensively as Trae Young? Probably. And
you hope not.
You know, there's a question about how playable Trae Young is, even with the skill set that he has.
What's the difference between your show and their show?
I'm going to say we have the superior talkers because I'm on the show, and nobody's a better talker than me in all of professional wrestling, and that's just a fact. We just feel really special, and we feel very distinct. And I think the biggest reason why, more than anything else, is because when I'm watching All Elite Wrestling, I don't feel like I am watching somebody play a character.
Pretty low scoring first half with 5:38. Going to send it deep. And Puka Williams out of his own end zone. Out across the 10 with a seam.
He's out of
Williams
there.
on the run. Inside the 20, breaks the tackle of the kicker, but Sutherland got just enough to trip him up. Huge return down to the 13-yard line.
And the guys are going to make fun of him because he got tackled by the kicker to stop him from scoring a touchdown.
Holy smokes.
1-0. That's all you got to say. Like right now, you can just walk up to anybody wearing a Knicks jersey and just say 1-0, and they're going to feel some kind of way. We'll talk to somebody now that knows that feeling all so well. We welcome in Ashley Nicole Moss, CBS Sports host, also doing the Cousins Show from the finals with Tracy McGrady and a cast of others. But you're here to talk about the Knicks. How we feel. I mean, I'll be honest. I didn't believe in your team much in the third quarter. I thought it was going downhill, and then all of a sudden, y'all made liars out of me. How we feeling, Ashley?
I'm feeling incredible. It was a wild, wild ride, and it's only the beginning. I was talking to one of my coworkers here at CBS. She's a diehard Celtics fan, and I was like, is this what it's like watching your team in the finals? This is a very stressful experience. It was high anxiety. It was, you know, ups and downs, but I mean, just the realization that we're watching the New York Knicks in the NBA finals after my entire life, outside of maybe like the small window where we had Carmelo Anthony and we had some hope, of my entire life of watching a losing basketball team, to be here and to be up 1-0 in the series and being able to do that in San Antonio is just such a surreal feeling. I don't think it's really set in yet.
I mean, watching your team compete for a championship is an indescribable feeling, but I just feel like it hits a little bit harder when you've been in an almost 30-year NBA Finals drought. It's like finally, like we felt like Moses in the desert, we are finally here. But I feel like there's no more intoxicating feeling. There's no more comfortable feeling, rather, than having a guy that you're like, oh, he's got us. Down 14 in the third quarter, no problem, because Jalen Brunson is wearing a Knicks jersey. Watching him do what he did in the fourth quarter last night, even after he got banged up, he came off the court, he had the bloody knee. Walk me through what it's like knowing that you have Superman on your side.
It's insane. I mean, it's such an infectious energy, right? Because it affects the rest of the team in the best possible way. When you see a guy who, gets beat up and banged up and doesn't quit and continues to fight, it makes you want to step up your game as his teammate, and it makes you want to fight for him. It's the equivalent, I feel like, of having a really good coach in the locker room who just knows what to say and when to say it. And Jalen Brunson's a guy who leads by example. Yes, he's vocal, but I think that also a lot of the times he's a guy who's leading by example, and it just makes everybody else around him want to step up their game. Jalen Brunson's tough as nails, and I think we have seen that in so many different instances, but he is only human. He is just a man after all. And when he went down both those times, Knicks fans everywhere were like praying to every single God possible, please don't let this happen this way. Please don't let this happen this way, because it would be a very Knicks thing to happen that we get this far and we lose Jalen Brunson in just a crazy fashion, but thankfully it wasn't that. And I just think that he continues to show he embodies what it means to be a New York Knick. It's the grit, it's the determination, it's essentially everything that the city of New York represents in one person.
The way you said that is so true and so beautiful, because like certain stars personify their city, right? So
Yeah.
Brunson is New York. Brunson is the Knicks. If this Knicks team with Brunson playing like he did last night in the key moments wins a championship, where does that sort of put Jalen Brunson in the hierarchy of all-time greats in New York sports history?
I mean, it might put him at number one if you ask me. And yes, people will be like, what about Derek Jeter? What about Patrick Ewing? What about Clyde Frazier? I mean, we're talking about a player who would have brought a championship to New York as a New York's basketball team. And yes, I know the Nets are technically a New York basketball team. We don't count them in New York, all right? There's only one basketball team, and it's the New York Knicks. To bring a championship back to the Knicks since the 70s, I mean, I don't know how you could put anybody above him. We're talking about, a player who came to New York and everybody doubted him, said he was too small, said he was overpaid, and just brick by brick, season by season, was working towards this very thing and didn't allow the outside noise to kind of take him off that track. And like I said, embodies what it means to be a New Yorker. So yeah, we have the Yankees, and all they do, or all they used to do, was win, win, win. So yeah, Derek Jeter, the captain, is goated in New York. And Aaron Judge is kind of borderline because, sometimes he comes through, sometimes he doesn't. But Jalen Brunson, in my opinion, I mean, he would automatically go to number one if he brings a championship to the New York Knicks, the first since the 70s.
Spoken like a true New Yorker to say that the Yankees used to win when they were one of the best records in baseball. They were just the World Series a couple of years ago. High expectations in New York, as it should be. But I do think that great teams and championship teams, they level everything up when it matters most. Obviously, we saw Jalen Brunson do that last night, but did you see anything different from Brunson, from Kat, whether it was how they were playing or with their demeanor? Did you see anything different last night that was maybe just another level unlocked that we haven't seen this season before?
I think the thing that has really stood out to me about this team is just the togetherness in which they play. And I think that that can't go under the radar. I think that a lot of the times you can be the most talented team on paper, you can be the most talented players individually, but if you don't know how to play together, especially when your backs are against the wall or when things aren't going your way, what good is it? And I think that we've seen a New York Knicks team that really knows how to play as a unit and rely and lean on each other. And Jalen Brunson had a tough night. It took him a long time to get going, but you have guys like Josh Hart, who was absolutely killing it in the rebounds, with the rebounds. You have Karl-Anthony Towns, who did a phenomenal job on Wemby. Some clutch shots from Mikal Bridges and Deuce McBride. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I feel like this is the difference between this Knicks team and the Knicks teams we've seen in the past, especially during the Tom Thibodeau era, where you had a group of guys who were constantly used in the regular season, and you see that fatigue play out in the postseason. Not only is this team healthier, but I think the creativity that Mike Brown really implemented during the regular season in terms of his lineups and different, formations of guys getting used to playing with each other and being on the floor with each other at the same time has really shown to be so beneficial in the postseason. These guys are familiar with each other up and down, left and right. And I believe that's the biggest thing that has made the difference in the Knicks postseason run.
All right, we buried the lead here, though. Like, maybe not the lead, but one of the better stories. I'm sitting there watching on the broadcast, and I watched the Knicks hit a big bucket late. Crowd goes
Yeah.
wild. Like, I'm stunned. I mean, the Spurs have done everything they can to try and keep Knicks fans out of the building. How are they getting in? What's that vibe like? What is it like for the away team to have that kind of a cheering section in San Antonio?
Well, I don't know how Ben Stiller managed to get courtside seats because they had Spike Lee in like the 5th row. So like they've been trying to block Knicks fans. So Fat Joe was there, Spike Lee was there, Timothy Chalamet, and out of all those guys, only Ben Stiller got a courtside seat. So respect to Ben Stiller, he's got more cachet than I guess everyone combined. Knicks fans travel, and look, I think they travel even more in this situation because they've been waiting their entire life for this very moment. You have to think about it. This isn't the Boston Celtics. This isn't the Los Angeles Lakers. This isn't even the Miami Heat, where fans of a certain age demographic have seen their team win, and in some cases have seen their team win multiple times. Knicks fans have been long-suffering Knicks fans their entire life. You don't choose to be a Knicks fan. It is chosen for you. My dad is a diehard Knicks fan. My grandpa was a Knicks fan. It is something that was chosen for me. So this moment means everything to this organization, to this fan base, and they're going to make sure every single game this team feels the love. I think it's incredible. And I think also, look, we got to call a spade a spade. It's a lot cheaper for a round trip ticket, a hotel, and a ticket to the opposing arena than it is at Madison Square Garden. So Knicks fans are going to try to see the Knicks wherever they can. But if you are playing the Knicks and you think you have a home court advantage, I mean, I hope that you have seen that that's just not the case.
I did see somewhere there was a Knicks fan that said, I flew first class from New York to San Antonio. I'm staying in a 5-star hotel and got great tickets for great seats in game 1. And it was still like a fraction of the cost for it to sit in the nosebleeds in MSG. It's absolutely crazy. But we'll be back in San Antonio for game 2. What do you expect from this Knicks squad in game 2?
Look, I expect a Knicks team that's going to play a lot better. I think the rust of game 1 is going to be gone. And, we've seen that kind of throughout their postseason journey, right? Because they have been running through their opponents and they've had a lot of gaps in between their series. And because of that, there is a level of rust because you're not in a constant motion. But with that said, I think the same can be said with San Antonio. They're coming off of a grueling 7-game series against the Oklahoma City Thunder, and they were a little rusty in their own ways, maybe a little bit fatigued. But one thing I give San Antonio credit for, and I've been saying this about this team all season, is that they are a team that plays beyond their years in terms of how they're able to kind of just bounce back from losses. They don't get too high, they don't get too low. They come out every single game and they do what you're supposed to do, and that is treat it as a new game. And I don't think Wemby is the type of player who's going to have multiple back-to-back, games where he doesn't perform well. I think the same can be said for a lot of the other guys, on the floor, and they're at home. So the benefit of being in your routine, sleeping in your own bed, can't go under the radar either. This series is far from over. Obviously, game 1 is a big statement, but it's also one of those games where it allows both teams to make adjustments, and those adjustments are going to be ultimately what follows them and affects how ultimately this series plays out. Everyone knows a 7-game series is a series of adjustments. So while it was a big statement for the Knicks to come out and kind of impose their dominance, especially when they're not playing well, I don't expect San Antonio to just roll over and think that they're not in this. They very much still are.
Darren Ravel tweeted out a few hours ago, the cheapest seat in Madison Square Garden right now is $6,000 for game 3. Lowers are $9,000. Courtside start at $50,000.
Yeah.
You're going to be in that building.
Yeah.
For somebody that's been around the Garden and been around this team and seen so much New York sports, what's that moment going to mean for this team, this city, that fan base, that energy inside Madison Square Garden?
I don't think I can even describe it. I mean, I remember last year when the Knicks were in the Eastern Conference Finals, how insane the environment was. I mean, you can feel the rumors of when you watch a game at Madison Square Garden with the New York Knicks and you can feel the floor rumbling underneath your feet are very, very real. It is louder than any arena I've ever been in. And I've been in college and professional arenas, covering the sport. And there's just nothing like the Garden. It's deafening in the best possible way. But we are talking about a team that has not been in this position in 20 plus years. We are talking about a team that's 3 wins away from an NBA Finals win, a trophy back in New York City. If you thought it was pandemonium when they knocked out the Cavs, when they knocked out the 76ers, when they knocked out the Atlanta Hawks, after game 1 against the San Antonio Spurs, and you see people in the streets and it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, you have seen nothing yet. It is going to be, they might need the FDNY, NYPD, and they might even need the National Guard because New Yorkers are not going to know how to act come Monday.
I was going to say, I don't know if the NYPD is enough. As wonderful as they are, you got to bring it in from New Jersey, Connecticut. Like they need to bring out all the stops there. Do you believe that the Knicks are a team of destiny?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to I try to keep a balance between being a professional and being a fan. It's very hard for me as the series continues and as this run continues. But I will say that it's hard to not think it. I mean, just this run has been magical. The way the Knicks have been winning has been magical. And little by little, you have seen this team work towards this. Every single year, it was an early exit in the first round. It was a second round exit. It was the conference finals. It was a loss in the conference finals. It was, just step by step, brick by brick. And there are just situations that I feel like, all the stars are aligned for a team to do exactly what people believe that they can do. And when you talk about the New York Knicks, the way that they've been winning, the run that they've had, the health that they have, knock on wood, that they'll continue to have, it's hard to not think that all the stars are aligned for this very team to do the thing that Knicks fans have been waiting for. So, like I said, the series is far from over, but if you want to talk about the perfect scenario and stars aligning and the path being right there and the end goal being right there, I mean, the Knicks kind of embody all those things.
Well, I mean, obviously this is a magical run to watch. It's been incredible for all of us. Hope it ends in a championship for you. And then if it does, you got to come back and hang out with us. Got to let us know what the vibe and environment was like. I'm still convinced if you get into the Garden and they happen to win at home, the best move is just to stay in the Garden for hours afterwards and just avoid the chaos on the streets. That's just that's old man advice to everybody. Just stay inside, enjoy extra refreshments, and then to get outside. That's the only advice. Ashley, we really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on. Congrats on all the success. Good luck through the rest of the series. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Of course.
Thanks,
Great
Ashley.
stuff from Ashley Nicole Moss. It's absolutely going to be electric in New York. It's already electric in Indiana, but it's not always great electricity. We'll tell you about it next.
There's the toss to Kerrigan. He is destroyed at the 2-yard line.
Yeah, and a great effort by Carson Taylor, defensive end. He makes Kerrigan really have to get wide here, and then good pursuit by the rest of the defense.
Arizona down by 3. Snap to Myler. There's the give to Clark. Open space, hurdles a defender, and he's tackled at the 17.
I loved Acuff all year. I mean, what an amazing college player.
Oh, yeah.
It's just his prototype in the NBA concerns me. But Acuff to me is the one that says, is he as good as Trae Young offensively? Probably not. Is he as bad defensively as Trae Young? Probably. And
you hope not.
There's a question about how playable Trae Young is, even with the skill set that he has.
What's the difference between your show and their show?
I'm going to say we have the superior talkers because I'm on the show, and nobody's a better talker than me in all of professional wrestling, and that's just a fact. We just feel really special, and we feel very distinct. And I think the biggest reason why, more than anything else, is because when I'm watching All Elite Wrestling, I don't feel like I am watching somebody play a character.
Low-scoring first half with 5:38. Going to send it deep. And Puka Williams out of his own end zone. Out across the 10 with a seam.
He's out of
Williams
there.
on the run. Inside the 20. Breaks the tackle of the kicker, but Sutherland got just enough to trip him up. Huge return down to the 13-yard line.
And the guys are going to make fun of him because he got tackled by the kicker to stop him from scoring a touchdown.
Holy smokes.
The person who ran out onto the court, update from an NBA spokesman, quote, the individual who entered the court area during game 1 of the finals was arrested and will be banned from life from all NBA arenas. A second individual will also receive a lifetime ban for his role in the incident. We all saw it late in the game as everybody stopped to see somebody run out onto the court, try and get a selfie with Wemby. A wasted effort, too, because as could be easily predicted for anyone that hasn't seen the selfie, you can't actually see Wemby. You can only see Wemby's jersey because Wemby's taller than the guy did. Typical. A guy taking a selfie that doesn't know how to angle his phone.
Look at that. And the irony of the Spurs, little ad patch being self and a selfie. If you're going to be dumb, be smart. That's my best advice I could ever give to anybody who wants to do something dumb. If you're running out on the court to get a selfie with Victor Wembanyama, okay, that's stupid. Get a selfie stick. The man's 7'4", probably taller. Your arm doesn't stretch out that far. Get a selfie stick. Also, just quit doing this. It's so dumb. How many times have we seen this in NBA games, baseball games, football games? We see this all the time. And it's just stupid. Now you're not going to be able to go to NBA games for the rest of your life. Maybe you'll say it's worth it, but at what cost? This is just so dumb. This is stupid. What? Do you think it's funny? You got to laugh out of people. You got to.
We keep calling him this individual. We need to be calling him a dumbass, and we need to stop supporting this behavior entirely. Imagine if you're just sitting at work and somebody decides that's the time they're going to run at you full speed just to take a selfie. Now, you don't know what their intent is as they're running up to you while you're selling cars to people. You just know somebody's running up to you, and I get it. Everybody says I'm the fun police every time I say this. Let me be clear. I want to arm every security guard with a taser. I want him to be tased, and then I want him to be strapped somewhere in the arena where every fan that watched him walk out on the court gets to tase him again on the way out the door. I want him tased, 18,000 times over the course of 10 minutes so that he understands a lesson, because it's only going to take one. This is where everybody tells me I'm being overdramatic. I will remind you all. I'm old enough to remember when you could fly just walking up to the gate. You could just walk up to the gate, walk onto a plane, and fly. It took tragedy for us to have metal detectors. They didn't even have metal detectors in airports pre-9/11. It's going to take one person running out onto the court that has a plastic shiv because he got it through the metal detectors because it's plastic, that decides he wants to change the outcome of his series, and then we're all going to sit there and say, how the hell did we let this happen? Why do we need to be reactive? Let's be proactive. I don't think that's enough punishment. I want mandatory prison sentencing. Put him in a good old federal prison and let him explain what life is like for the next 5 years while he runs through federal prison for it. I don't think there's a punishment that can be big enough, because it takes one moron that has nefarious things on his mind, that has lost his cool, that goes out onto the court and changes everybody's life forever. We've seen it in tennis. We have literally seen a tennis player stabbed. I don't think we need to see an NBA. I go on this rant every time this happens. People think it's cute. It's cute until it's your favorite team, or anybody really. And then we see somebody come out of the court that isn't just there for a selfie. They're there to try and impact the Knicks' ability to win a championship. It takes one moron. One moron, Carolyn.
Remind me to not, surprise you at your house. To not just come into your lawn unannounced. I will definitely send you a text with plenty of a heads up. But you said people think it's cute. Do we? Does anyone think it's cute?
No, you're probably right.
Does anyone think it's funny? It's not. These are people doing their jobs. It's the same thing when I see, reporters, MMJs out doing their jobs, out in the field reporting, and there's fans that are jumping up and down and screaming words behind them. Just leave that person alone. It's not cute. It's not funny. Your friends might giggle at you, and then when you grow up in 10 or 15 years, or maybe ever, you're going to look back and think about how stupid you were and how you negatively impacted someone's day. All of this is the same thing, but just on a much, much, much higher scale. You're just being dumb. And now, like, if that person applies for a job at a company that I own or work for, I'm not giving them a job, because I think that person is dumb, and I think that person uses bad judgment, and I think that person prioritizes laughs and being funny than they do actually, being a decent human being. So I know that, court stormings, people always laugh, or field stormings, people always laugh. It's not funny. It's unnecessary. It adds zero value to anyone's life. Just quit doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to be in a band that had a massive hit, but what that massive hit was called If I Die Young. The number of people that interpreted that in a very, very weird way and would send death threats, it was a common thing. We'd have security side stage. And the number of times you'd sit there and you'd look out and you're like, okay, is somebody running onto stage because they want to take a picture, or are they running onto stage because they want to have some wild moment? The world is crazier. We know the world is crazy. I don't know why we need the world to prove they're crazy before we fix this. Kudos, though, by the way, to security that did get on it quickly as they could. Yeah. Kudos to security that got him out of there quickly. Kudos for Wemby not making it worse than it could have been. I'm just saying we should at least have a mindset around what the worst case scenario possibly could be. Go ahead.
Did you see the video in slow-mo? Mitchell Robinson and Wemby in the screen, and Mitchell Robinson is like, his eyes are big, his like eyebrows are going up like this, like he looks so confused. He's like, what in the world is going on? And Wemby has such a big smile on his face. Wemby's like laughing. So I'm glad that Wemby just was kind of making fun of it and just kind of scoffing it off as nothing. But it is a really funny video that's been circulating on social media. Poor Mitchell Robinson did not know what was happening.
Yeah, there is no doubt. So now that we've seen game one, we'll stick here for a second. Now that we've seen game one, you picked the Knicks to win this series. I picked the Spurs to win this series. Did you see anything in game one that specifically makes you rethink the way you think this series is going to go?
No, I actually feel very smart for picking the Knicks. Okay. But also, we've seen San Antonio lose games at home before in the postseason. And we've seen San Antonio time and time again, whether it was against Minnesota or especially against Oklahoma City. The reason why that Oklahoma City series was so up and down, it was so hot and cold, was because San Antonio was able to make expert adjustments. Another thing is Wemby takes everything personally. I think Wemby is going to come back with the power and the thunder of the gods in game two. You think you're going to come on the road in our house and steal game one after we had a double-digit lead in the third quarter? Like, no, I think Wemby will take that personally. Now, there's only so much that can carry, right? There's one thing to be mentally motivated, and it's another thing to actually go out there in the court and execute. So while I feel very good in my pick of the Knicks, I picked Knicks in 7. I feel very good about that because you have to steal a game on the road in this series, and the Knicks have already done that one game in. But I don't expect this to be just an easy Knicks victory, Knicks in 4, Knicks in 5. No, I think that this is very much so going to be a long and very competitive series.
I picked Spurs in 6, and I think the only reason last night makes me nervous for that pick, it isn't that the Spurs lost. I thought they would probably lose game one. It's how they lost. It's that they were up by 14 and they just let the Knicks get back in. It's that they let the Knicks get that level of confidence. It's that they let the Knicks sort of take over, knowing that that's exactly who the Knicks are and what they do. It's that they didn't have a great answer for it. It's that as the fourth quarter wore on, the Spurs just felt like they got less controlled, not more controlled. I really love what Richard Jefferson told us earlier in the show, that when you've gone through a game 7 on the road to defeat the defending champions, there is no real nerves in game one. Game 1 of the NBA Finals isn't this big moment. But he also did point out that Wemby has to figure out how to recalibrate the emotion sometimes. Like, you had such an emotional moment, it's a drain, and now you have to reinvent it. I expect that that's what we'll see, but man, we better see that, because if we don't, it will be absolute chaos going into the Garden. We'll be either way. We'll be here to cover every single second of it. We'll be right here tomorrow at 9 a.m. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for hanging out with us. Come watch Yahoo Sports Daily tomorrow.